What's up? It's your boy Kevin to turn on this motherfucking YouTube shit. Wow, what the
fuck? What's up? It's your boy Kevin turn YouTube shit. Hey man, say man, we are Lit just tease man. Turn. Change motherfucker day. Straight outside. Big crib in the game. Outside shit, man. Free Palestine, free Congo, Russia, do your thing and take stand the fuck up. Each day is new day to be a better version of yourself. Another time bring that outside back. Another time tell you you are about to put yourself in a position of alone. Let's stay humble. Let's get a revolution on this moment. Keep y'all right first. Come to the Black Hebrew Israelite as a real Jew. We out you. Alright. Boom. Today, motherfucker day. Straight outside. Big crib in the game. Straight outside shit, man. Gang, go. Turn. Bruh. So, we know how the system works. We know how the industry works. We know how secret organizations work. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, when you are more knowledgeable to certain things, man, it don't matter who you are, how much money you got, and how famous you are, it don't matter. Once you start realizing that shit, man, you can start waking up to the truth of what be happening in this reality, man, and how people be trying to play on people's intellect and talk. So we got Michael Jackson, man. So y'all know that they released all the messages of what's going on with Epstein. So the emails are coming out that, you know, these very rich people in the label, in the industry, that, you know, control a lot of the music industry and just stuff in general, like anything. They control a lot of shit, wealth in this world. So we got Michael Jackson, man, exposing a lot of this shit. Emails got exposed, and how Michael Jackson was trying to warn us how this world is changing into and how it's been. But you feel me? Let's get through it. Shout out to J Diggs Music. The Michael Jackson emails nobody was supposed to see. Ever since them Epstein files, man, they've been up and stuck.
The desire to be the greatest of all time is a never-ending curse. Because no matter how great you become, there's always a constant need to prove you're still the best. And nobody lived that curse more than Michael Jackson.
Are you pleased now with the way
I'm never pleased with anything. I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah.
It's part of who I am.
Off the Wall had to be better
Michael,
than Motown.
that nigga.
Thriller had to beat Off the Wall. And he kept trying to top himself with every album he recorded after. Every tour had to make the last one look small. Not because the fans or the label demanded it. It's because Michael expected it of himself. That kind of mentality is what made him the greatest entertainer who ever lived. And unfortunately, it's also what made him the perfect target.
This is the final curtain call. Okay? Let's see you in July.
By 2008, Michael Jackson hadn't toured in over a decade. He was 50 years old, his public image was in ruins, and he was sitting on over $400 million in debt. He needed one more show, one more moment to prove to the world and to himself that he was still him.
Like $6 billion.
And there were people around him who knew that. People who understood Michael's need to perform wasn't just ambition anymore. It became desperation. And sometimes in the music industry, one person's desperation is another person's opportunity. Even as a teenager, Michael had an obsession for greatness. He practiced nonstop. He was constantly pushing Motown for solo songs. Nothing was going to stop him.
Actually, becoming like a stage addict. I really am. Like when there are off days and there is no show, I'm up at night dancing just to sing. It's really strange. Guess I'm an addict. Can't help it.
His love for music and his dedication to the craft gave him the power to push through dangerous rehearsals and performances. He spent hours working on his Motown 25 routine while recovering from surgery. He even kept dancing when his hair caught fire during the Pepsi commercial. And in 1995, he pushed himself to the point of passing out during rehearsals for an HBO special. The need to be the best wasn't a choice for Michael. It was in his blood. And that's exactly what made him vulnerable to what came next.
AEG, giving the world reason to cheer.
In 2008, a company called AEG Live approached Michael with a proposal. AEG owns arenas, they promote tours, they're behind some of the biggest concerts on the planet.
They trying to take niggas out.
And they saw something in Michael that nobody else was willing to bet on at the time.
True.
A comeback.
This is the moment. This is it.
Hey, boss, can I get some?
The deal was massive. 50 shows at London's O2 Arena. A residency called This Is It.
50 shows sell out.
Michael and AEG stood to earn hundreds of millions of dollars. And after calculating ticket sales, merch, sponsorships, media rights, estimates reached over $1 billion. See, Michael was in a lot of financial debt, and AEG already advanced in tens of millions before the residency started. So this wasn't a situation where Michael could just walk away if things got bad. The money was already spent. Contracts were signed. AEG needed this tour to happen. And a cancellation would be a financial disaster. And Michael needed it too. Not just for the money. He needed the world to see him one more time and remember what he was.
That nigga.
This was his resurrection. Everything was on the line for everybody involved. But right away, things started falling apart. March 5th, 2009, the day Michael was supposed to appear at the O2 Arena in London to announce the tour to the world. Thousands of fans, hundreds of journalists, cameras ready to broadcast to the world. But at the same time, AEG Live CEO, a man named Randy Phillips, wrote an email to the parent company's executives and said, MJ is locked in his room, drunk and despondent.
And you wrote, I screamed at him so loud the walls are shaking.
Yes, that was an exaggeration, but I did raise my voice.
All right. And was it also an exaggeration when you wrote, this is the scariest thing I've ever seen?
The promoter blamed London traffic when Jackson was 90 minutes late for the announcement that day. And of course, they never said anything to the public. They rushed him to the O2. Michael walked out on the stage and told the world, this is it. And to everybody watching, it looked like the King of Pop was back.
This is it.
But behind the scenes, AEG already knew he wasn't okay. But they pushed forward anyway. 2 months later, Randy Phillips even went on CNN and told the public that Michael Jackson was as healthy as he can be. No health problems whatsoever. Over the next couple of months, there were growing concerns amongst the internal team about Michael's health. Randy sent an email to Paul Gongaware, the co-CEO. We need to pull the plug now. After some back and forth, the team decided it was time to bring in a doctor. But not just any doctor. It had to be someone that Michael trusted. Dr. Conrad Murray was a cardiologist, and he first met Michael back in 2006 in Vegas. Murray had been treating Michael on and off for a few years, but by 2009, he was drowning in his own debt. He was facing foreclosure on his home. He owed child support to multiple women. His medical practice was falling apart. He was behind on everything. And then came the offer. AEG Live drafted a contract to pay Murray $150,000 a month to serve as Michael Jackson's personal physician. Now, $150,000 sounds real nice when you're deep in debt and can't pay your mortgage. But here's the catch. The contract was never actually signed by Michael. Murray was never technically paid, but he was already treating Michael in anticipation for a big payday. The doctor responsible for keeping Michael Jackson healthy had every financial incentive in the world to keep him performing no matter what. If the tour gets canceled, Murray doesn't get paid. The company executives at AEG knew this, and they used Murray as leverage whenever there was concerns brought up about Michael's health. They had the doctor in their back pocket.
Did you ever talk to Dr. Murray about Michael Jackson's health?
Not so much about his health.
That motherfucker Clive Davis.
What in particular did you talk to him about?
Michael Jackson.
Well, I talked to him about being willing to get him whatever he needed to do what he had to do.
So now you got three parties locked into the situation. Michael, who needs to prove he's still the greatest, AEG, who needs the tour to happen to recoup their investment, and Dr. Murray, who needs Michael to push through to collect his paycheck. Every single person around Michael Jackson had a financial reason to keep him going. And for a while, it looked like it actually might work. In the This Is It documentary, Michael looks incredible. He's dancing, he's directing the band, he's obsessing over every detail the way he always did. But what the documentary didn't show you is what's happening in between the rehearsals. Michael was losing weight, he was missing rehearsals. One of the show engineers even emailed that MJ is not in shape enough yet to sing this stuff and dance at the same time. Now keep in mind, this email was sent 1 month before the first show. People on the production team, they were starting to notice, but nobody wanted to be the person who pulled the plug.
At all.
As the first show day was quickly approaching, the pressure was reaching a boiling point.
Quick as fuck.
Dancers were making sure every step was in line.
By him
the
or
band spent
AEG.
hours making sure every song was perfect. Sometimes even repeating the same section of a song over and over again. And not only did Michael have to sound his best, he also had to look his best. And that was a job for Karen Faye.
Just a little bit softer.
If you use Instagram, hair and makeup artist for
They
over
were trying
20
to take that
years,
nigga out since the
he was
beginning.
like a brother to her.
That was that
And
golden
when she was brought
egg
on board,
goose.
she noticed something wasn't quite right. In an email she wrote to one of Michael's managers, Frank DeLeo, "I have seen with my own eyes him deteriorate physically in a month." Karen also had friends who were fans and would sometimes spend time with Michael at different events and backstage meet and greets. And a month before the first show date, emails from those fans started coming in. One fan wrote, "Michael is too thin. When we hugged, I felt there was literally nothing to him." In another email, a fan wrote something that's even more chilling. "Last week I was in LA with a friend to see Michael. She said when he took his jacket off, she saw a skeleton. She went on to say, if we do nothing, he will die."
His promoter struck a deal for Jackson to stay for 40 more shows. Well, he's now panicking and says he's not physically strong enough for that many shows. He says he's not a big eater, and if he doesn't put on some weight, he'll never get through it.
Karen became terrified for Michael. She was working hands-on with him on a daily basis and could physically see his deterioration. Near the end of Karen's email to Michael's manager, she says, "You do not want him collapsing in front of thousands of people. His bones are protruding." And then at the end of the email, she says, "I'm leaving this in your hands as you have instructed me to do so." Now, according to other emails and personal accounts, Michael was pretty stubborn, and there wasn't much his manager, let alone his hairstylist, could say to make him walk away from one of the most important moments of his
I don't
life.
think he's gonna let that shit go.
A couple of days where you say, "Mike, are you all right? Are you taking anything? Or you seem..." Well, no. Why? What would make you think that? Don't ask me that. He said that. I have kids. I'm not doing that. So what are you going to say? He's a grown man.
The only people who could put a stop to this whole thing were the people in charge of AEG Live. Randy Phillips, Paul Gongaware, and their boss, Tim Lawicki. Now, if you don't know Tim Lawicki, he was the president of the Denver Nuggets in the 90s. And in 2005, he was actually indicted by the Department of Justice for orchestrating a bid rigging scheme. But in 2009, he's the big boss at AEG. June 19, 2009, 3 weeks before the first show. Production manager John Hudal, one of the guys on the ground watching Michael rehearse every day, he sends an email to Randy Phillips. "MJ was sent home without stepping foot on stage. He was a basket case, and Kenny was worried he would embarrass himself on stage, or worse yet, be hurt." The Kenny he's referring to is Kenny Ortega. Now, Ortega was the show's director and choreographer. He'd worked with Michael before on the Dangerous and History tours. He knew Michael. He knew what Michael looked like when he was on, and he knew what he looked like when something was wrong.
And can you describe what you personally observed on that day, June 19th, 2009?
That my friend wasn't right, that he wasn't well. There was something going on that was deeply troubling me.
And of course, by my friend, you mean Michael?
Yes.
Michael Jackson?
Yes.
The next day, Ortega sent a panicked email to Randy Phillips. He said, Michael appeared weak and fatigued, that he was trembling, rambling, and obsessing.
They want these to come out.
And Ortega recommended Michael have a psychological exam. Randy responded, but he didn't seem too concerned. Now, if you remember a few months ago, Randy said that we need to pull the plug now, which would have been the right call, but now he's in too deep. Now, Kenny wasn't satisfied with Randy's response, so he wrote back. I honestly don't think he's ready for this, based on his continued physical weakening and deepening emotional state. It is reminiscent of what Karen, Bush, Travis, and I remember just before he fainted, causing the HBO concerts to be canceled. Now, this is a pivotal moment. All the alarms are going off. Michael's falling apart. The fans can see it. The show director, the man that's closest to Michael creatively, he's yelling out loud in the email that putting Michael Jackson on stage was dangerous. And what did Randy Phillips do? He sent an email. Well, he sent a few emails, but it's what he said in those emails that would be Michael's demise. Instead of canceling rehearsals, instead of bringing in a medical team, calling Michael's family, he emails Kenny back and he says, "It is critical that neither you, me, or anyone around this show become amateur psychiatrists or physicians." Then he goes on to sing Dr. Murray's praises, and he writes, "The doctor said, Michael is not only physically equipped to perform, and that discouraging him to will hasten his decline instead of stopping it." Randy says that this doctor is extremely successful. We check everyone out and does not need this gig, so he is totally unbiased and ethical. You almost have to laugh at the way that he wrote the last part. It's kind of like, "Here, climb in my van. I promise I won't kidnap you. You can trust me." Now, what makes this even more sinister is that Randy emailed his boss, Tim, in response to this and said, "This guy is really starting to concern me," referring to Kenny Ortega.
"This guy is really starting to concern me. Read his email and my response. Dr. Murray and I are meeting with MJ at 4 p.m. today at the Forum RP. Why is Randy Phillips sending these to you?"
I don't know. You should ask Randy.
And what was it? What concerned you about Mr. Ortega's email to you?
Yeah, I don't remember.
So Randy and Tim end up calling a meeting at Michael's house. Randy, Tim, Kenny, Michael, and Dr. Conrad Murray. Now, before we talk about the meeting, it's important to look at an email that Paul Gongaware sent Kenny Ortega a few days earlier. Now, Kenny sent an email to Paul first saying that the doctor didn't clear Michael for a rehearsal. And Paul's response really shines a light on what happens at the meeting. Paul replies, "We want to remind Murray that it's AEG, not MJ, who's paying his salary. We want to remind him what is expected of him."
Mr. Gongaware, I want to direct your attention to the middle of the first page. Based on the assumptions that AEG is your company and MJ is Michael Jackson. Do you have an understanding of what that means?
No, I don't understand it, because we weren't paying his salary.
So why would you write that?
I have no idea.
At the meeting, according to a police detective summary, when Ortega got in Michael's face about his concerns, Dr. Murray told everyone in the room, "You're not a doctor, butt out." The one person raising the alarm got silenced by the one person with the biggest financial incentive to keep things moving.
When I had a meeting at the house with AEG officials, and they pointed to Michael, the guy who could not pay me for months after taking care of him.
Damn.
That he was penniless.
I
was shocked. As it was that time when Michael came to me trembling and trying to get me away from the AEG official, who was Randy Phillips. I was shocked out of state. I should have just picked my bags up and leave.
Behind the scenes for
He
weeks,
wasn't gonna do that. He needs
Dr.
that
Murray was
money
giving
on.
Michael nightly infusions of propofol, a surgical anesthetic, just to get him to sleep.
We have a gentleman here that needs help, and he's not breathing yet. He's not breathing, and we're trying to pump him, but he's not. Okay. Okay, how old is he? He's 50 years old, sir. 50? Okay. He's unconscious, he's not breathing? Yes, he's not breathing.
That's the doctor.
And on the morning of June 25th, 2009, the doctor gave Michael a series of other drugs. But when Michael still couldn't get to sleep after a long night, he gave him 25 milligrams of propofol. Michael was finally able to get to sleep. Except this time, he never woke up.
Michael Jackson suffered cardiac arrest this afternoon. He was rushed to UCLA Medical Center.
The King of Pop died suddenly at the age of 50 at about 2:30 this afternoon.
He was on the verge of a 50-date comeback tour, but today he collapsed with a massive cardiac arrest, rushed to the hospital in a coma. Doctors could not save him.
This was 5 days after the meeting. 5 days after Randy Phillips, Paul Gonaware, Tim Lawicki, and Dr. Murray ignored Kenny Ortega's warning and did everything in their power to make sure the show went on.
You had your cell phone.
I had my cell phone.
You didn't call 911.
I did not call 911.
You called his assistant.
Yes.
To call security.
Yes.
This is a vital time.
Conrad Murray was arrested and charged with involuntary manslaughter.
And the people
During the
behind the
criminal
scene,
trial,
AEG,
prosecutors argued that
didn't get
Murray
nothing
acted
happen to him
recklessly
at all.
by
They
using
blame
a
the black
surgical
guy.
anesthetic to treat insomnia.
That's
and was
insane.
criminally negligent in Michael's death. The jury agreed and Murray was convicted.
The court has determined that the appropriate term is the high term of 4 years imprisonment.
But that's not the end of it. Because the real question was never just about Murray. It was about the people who put him there. In 2010, Michael's mother, Catherine Jackson, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against AEG Live on behalf of herself
just motherfucking say, okay.
The lawsuit accused AEG of putting their desire for profits from the This Is It tour over the health and safety of Michael. They were seeking $1.5 billion in damages. The trial lasted 5 months. Dozens of witnesses testified and 250 pages of internal documents. The jury made their decision.
AEG Live never would have agreed to finance this tour if it knew Mr. Jackson was playing Russian roulette every night in his bedroom. In the end, it seems the jury was persuaded by that argument, ruling once again that AEG did hire Conrad Murray, but that Conrad Murray was not unfit for the job. And in other words, AEG was not culpable for his death. The verdict means that the Jackson family essentially walks away with nothing. The police officer at the scene
Another group of white people that
AEG's
ruin
lawyers,
black
they
people's
argued
lives.
that Michael Jackson was a 50-year-old man responsible for his own health.
Give us a little
who
bit
had
of
a
money
history
on,
of
then we destroy
doctor shopping.
ourselves, huh?
They said AEG Live did not have a crystal ball.
Yeah,
but there
all
was
right,
one
buddy.
thing that they could see coming. The money. One of the darkest revelations in the trial came a week after Michael's death. Weeks after the man they watched deteriorate and push forward anyway was gone, Randy Phillips sent one more email. Michael's death is a terrible tragedy, but life must go on. AEG will make a fortune from merch sales, ticket retention, the touring exhibition, and the film and DVD. And they did. AEG was allowed to sell Michael Jackson tour merchandise. They shared in the profits from the This Is It documentary, a film made entirely from rehearsal footage of a man who they knew was at the end of his rope.
That's some fucking bullshit.
Michael's
like
gone.
they said, man.
The doctor served 2
Sometimes
years.
you worth more dead than alive, bitch.
Free.
They got that life
But see,
insurance
there's one
policy.
silver lining to this story.
The right.
See, AEG can make as much money as they want, but they can never own Michael's legacy.
I
There's
told you
one
to
thing
recreate
Michael
Michael
loved more than
Jackson.
the music and being the best, and that was his fans and how he made us feel. The emails don't define him. The trial doesn't define him. We define him. Every time somebody puts on Thriller at a party, or every time a kid tries to do the moonwalk for the first time, almost every artist looks up to Michael. They know they can never be him, but Michael's legacy inspires everyone to be just a little bit better, a little bit greater. And AEG Live can never take that.
Ever.
Now, Michael was no stranger to speaking out about companies that were trying to
Michael
exploit
Jackson
him.
name alive, man.
We
Real.
have access to these emails in hindsight.
It just shows you how this dirty this damn industry is.
But
And
one
just in
company
general,
Michael
like
knew all about was
people,
Sony.
society.
And he spent the last few years of his life trying to take him down. If you want to hear more about that story, watch this next video here.
Shout out to J Diggs Music. Here's why the artists are terrified of Sony. Michael Jackson tried to warn us, man. You know what I'm saying? A lot of this, man, they was trying to take Michael Jackson out. And at the same time, we do got to take accountability for our actions, you know, and why certain things happen when we put ourselves in positions that we don't need to be, man. True.
In 2002, the King of Pop stood before a crowd at Harlem.
Tommy Mottola. Tommy Mottola is the president of the record division. He is a mean, he's a racist, and he's very, very, very devilish.
In 2016, a pop star begged the judge for her freedom.
Free Cashin' out! Free Cashin' out! Free Cashin' out!
In 1993, one of music's most powerful voices
We're gonna see how all these people exposed Sony,
man. In 1994,
man.
a superstar chose career suicide over corporate slavery.
What is it going to mean for the record industry?
Betrayal. No idea. Oh, I've got it. Different artists, different battles, same corporation. There's a building in New York City. From the outside, it looks like any other corporate tower. Glass, steel, concrete.
That shit turned out to be the motherfucking
decisions are made that shape what the entire world listens to. Sony Music Entertainment, the second largest music company on earth, parent company to Columbia Records, the oldest label in America. RCA Records, where Elvis became a legend. Epic Records, where Michael Jackson made history. And many other smaller labels and companies. Combined, they control the careers of thousands of artists, generate billions in revenue, and define the soundtrack of our lives. But power like that, it don't come without a price. And that price, it always seems to come at the expense of the artist. It starts the same way every time. A young artist with a gift, a contract that promises the world, success beyond imagination. And then, along the way, something changes. The artist gets bigger, becomes a household name. They want creative control over their own music. They don't just question the numbers, they dare to say no. And that's when Sony shows its true face. What I'm about to show you is not conspiracy theory or speculation or anything like that. It's documented, court records, testimonies, evidence that's been buried under settlements and NDAs for decades. In this video, we expose how one corporation weaponized the dreams of artists, writers, and producers. How contracts literally became cages and how they turned desire for success into a trap.
They looking for a lick, nigga.
Built an
they looking for puppets. They trying to take niggas out, nigga.
Made them billions.
Easy. They might give you what you want in the beginning.
Stand to
clip your shit, nigga.
Sony has been at the center of artists' legal battles for decades. This is a story Sony doesn't want you to know. The story of their victims. 9. Story of their victims.
Because they don't want to know this shit. Because, nigga, they want more victims.
Alright, let's start with the king of pop himself. Now, everybody knows Michael Jackson.
But you know how this world is,
what y'all might not know is how
Sony like trying to nice ass drugs. Somebody die from the drug.
Entertainer of all time.
I want to try
it. See, MJ and Sony had a beautiful relationship at first. Michael released his hits under Epic Records, which was bought by Sony in 1988. I mean, we're talking some of the greatest and highest selling records of all time. Sony was eating good off Mike. But then something changed, and that something was called Sony ATV Music Publishing. So let me break it down. So in 1985, MJ bought the Beatles catalog for $47 million, which gave him ownership of a publishing company called ATV Music. It was a smart business move. And then in 1995, he merged it with Sony's publishing to create Sony ATV. This allowed Mike to own half of one of the most valuable music catalogs in the world. He didn't just have ownership in the Beatles songs. He had a piece of multiple major artists.
Michael Jackson was like a long strike, bitch.
Beatles catalog. No,
that nigga was taking everything.
Sony ATV, half of it, I heard. So when Tommy was trying to sign me when I was 18, Michael was trying to sign me because he owned half of Sony ATV.
Everything was cool. That's when Sony switched up. The main issue started in the early 2000s. By 2001, Mike dropped Invincible. But he was waiting for his contract with Sony to expire so he could manage everything himself. He wanted out and he tried to work things out with the president of Sony, Tommy Mottola. But in retaliation, the label started pulling back on pushing the album.
So I'm leaving Sony a free agent. I own half of Sony's publishing and I'm
they was mad.
You do. And Tommy Mottola is a devil.
Now, this is Michael Jackson we're talking about. The man who made Thriller. And Sony barely pushed the album. Michael also realized that the lawyer he was working with was also working with Sony.
Yep.
And the label was pressuring him to buy parts of his royalties. But Mike knew what was up. They wanted his catalog. They wanted him to default on the loan so they could swoop in and take half of Sony ATV. So what did Mike do? Oh, he was ready to blow shit up.
Get your own family.
In 2002, he pulled up the outside his headquarters in Harlem and let it all out. He called Tommy Mottola, the head of Sony, a racist and a devil in public in front of everybody, multiple times. But he didn't stop there. This man got on a double-decker bus with a bunch of fans and circled Sony's headquarters. He held up a poster with Mottola's face with devil horns on it. You see, Sony spent $30 million making Invincible, but only $25 million. promoting it. And just for comparison, they spent about $50 million promoting Celine Dion's album that same year. No hate to Celine Dion, but she ain't Michael Jackson.
You did.
The result, Invincible only sold 6 million copies. And for Michael Jackson, that's a flop.
It would have been so much bigger back then if him and Tommy weren't beefing. So if Michael would have had his fair shake, because, you know, they went on not to promote. Like, Michael had a vision. Like, I was part of it. I remember him saying, we're going to come out with this first. We're going to shoot a short film, The Threat, and we're going to shoot a short film. You know, with Unbreakable, and I'm having Biggie. I had the Biggie verse. I'm having Biggie in the video in a hologramic type form.
They had to get that nigga out the paint.
So when I look at that, I'm like, yo, he didn't get a chance to promote because whatever business wasn't right at that time.
That's why. So after Michael tragically passed away, guess what Sony did? They ended up buying Michael's estate's share of the catalog. So, in the end, they got exactly what they wanted. Picture this. You're 18 years old, you're talented. Some people would argue otherwise, but follow me here. You got dreams. And one of the biggest producers in the game, Dr. Luke, wants to sign you. You think you hit the lottery, right? Wrong. See, Kesha signed with Dr. Luke's label, Kemosabe Records, which was under Sony Music. And for a minute, everything was pretty cool. TikTok came out in 2009 and went crazy. We're talking #1 in 14 countries. Diamond certified. Kesha was that girl in the electro-pop era of the early 2010s. But behind the scenes, it was a nightmare. In 2014, Kesha signed a lawsuit that shook the entire industry. She accused Dr. Luke of drugging her, assaulting her, and emotionally abusing her for years. Allegedly, she was told, you're not that pretty, you're not that talented, you're just lucky to have me. So Kesha did what anybody would do. She tried to get out of the situation. She went to court to be released from her contract so she could make music on her own.
They can't control you.
You know what Sony said? We can't terminate the contract. It's not our deal. It's Dr. Luke's deal. And that's crazy because even if that is true, everything was under Sony's umbrella. It's like this. See, Sony had a joint venture with Dr. Luke. They had the power to let Kesha go. They had the power to say, hey, we don't want to be associated with this. They could have moved her to another label even under their umbrella. They had options. They just turned a blind eye.
Chase Sapphire.
The umbrella. They had options. They just turned a blind eye. They kept her locked in a contract with the man she said abused her. And because of this, Kesha couldn't release music for 5 years. From 2012 to 2017, 5 years of her prime was just gone. And it wasn't just about releasing music. She couldn't record without his approval.
For 5
She
years is
tour.
insane,
She couldn't even really move on with her life, you know?
But that's what they
Other
do.
big artists actually
You don't agree with them, they try to hold
and
this shit up.
started speaking out. Fans protested outside of Sony's headquarters, and the whole world was watching this.
That's how people do.
Sony put out their
They
little
try to
statement.
raise
They put out a statement saying they were doing everything they can to support the artists in these circumstances, but it's legally unable to blah, 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 blah. And as a legal note, none of this was proven in court, but you know how that sometimes goes. The point is, Sony had a choice between potentially protecting an artist who says she was abused or protecting their business relationship. They chose the money.
Of course.
Speaking of choosing money over artists, let's talk about Mariah
They don't care
Carey
about
and
these
Tommy
people.
Mottola.
They care about them, but they don't give a
Mottola
fuck.
and Michael Jackson called the devil. Now, this story is wild because it actually starts off like a fairy tale. Mariah was 18 when she met Tommy. He was 39 and the head of Sony Music, you know, the average Hollywood relationship, unfortunately. She was a struggling artist with a demo tape, and he was one of the most powerful men in the industry. You can probably see where this is going. They ended up getting married in 1993, had a whole Cinderella wedding worth $500,000. But behind closed doors, Mariah said it was more like being in prison.
I didn't feel like I was worthy of existing. The police took you, Mariah Carey, in the backseat of the police car. It's a vivid memory. I have never spoken about it. I did feel like I was held captive in that relationship.
And I'm not saying that lightly because Mariah literally called it $30 million mansion Sing Sing after the maximum security prison in New York. Apparently, Tommy had the house on lockdown. Security cameras in every room.
I tell y'all niggas,
guards
man.
everywhere.
You may have heard the rumors
That
about Tommy
looking good until you get into that shit. It's a whole
He controlled everybody around me. Everybody was afraid of him. There was so much security and armed security. This is not okay. You're Mariah Carey. I thought you could do whatever you want.
The man controlled everything. What she wore, who she worked with, how her music sounded. Mariah said, and I quote, "From the moment Tommy signed me, he tried to wash the urban off of me.
Damn.
They straightened her hair, put her in conservative outfits. Meanwhile, Mariah grew up listening to R&B and hip-hop. You know, she wanted to work with rappers and R&B artists. Tommy,
she wanted that BBC.
He wanted a mainstream pop princess.
Shout out White Peckerwood.
When she pushed for more creative control, he would remind her of who made her famous, saying lines like, you know, "You're nothing without me. You'll never work in this town again." Even Michael came out and talked about Mariah's relationship with Tommy. The breaking point came when Tommy allegedly held a butter knife to her face in front of dinner guests just because she wanted to leave him. But here's what really gets me, because even after they divorced in 98, she was still signed to Sony. She still had to work with the same company that her ex-husband ran. And yeah, Tommy is more so the villain here, but I'm pretty sure there was a record executive or somebody at Sony that knew what was going on. But then again, they were married, so what can you do?
I know he was mad as hell, though.
You know, George Michael's story is a little different because he actually tried to fight Sony in court and they destroyed him.
They want black people, but they don't want black people who are ghetto, basically.
Faith had sold 25 million copies. He was one of the biggest pop stars in the world. But when he put out Listen Without Prejudice Volume 1, he decided to do something different. He said, "I don't want to do videos. I don't want to do interviews. I want the music to speak for itself." You know what Sony did? They basically said, "F your album then." George claimed Sony deliberately tanked his album because he wouldn't play the pop star game. So in 1992, he did something crazy. He sued Sony for what he called professional slavery. His argument was basically, the contracts are bullshit. You signed me for 8 albums over 15 years. You control everything I do. And if I don't like it, I can't leave.
Even though I both created and paid for my work, I will never own it or have any rights over it. I have no control or say in the way that my work is exploited. I have no guarantee that my work will be released at all. If Sony reject my work, it will never see the light of day. I am convinced that the English legal system will not uphold what is effectively professional slavery.
That's not a business partnership. That's slavery. The case went on for 2 years, and in 94, the judge ruled against George. Not only did he lose, but he had to pay Sony's legal fees. We're talking about $4.5 million. But here's the thing. George said, "I'm never recording for Sony again." He meant it. This man set out for years rather than give Sony another album. Now think about that. George Michael was so traumatized by Sony that he chose to destroy his own career rather than work with them again. That's how bad it was.
Dry, tight skin after...
Again, that's how bad it was. Now, Kelly Clarkson's situation shows you that Sony's bullshit didn't stop in the 90s or the 2000s. This went down in 2007. Kelly was America's sweetheart, first American Idol winner. Her album Breakaway sold 12 million copies. She was on top of the world. But Kelly wanted to evolve. For her third album, My December, she wanted to write her own songs. Show her artistry. You know, Cole was an artist like most of us do.
Especially us.
Clive Davis, head of Sony BMG at the time, he wasn't having it. This man offered Kelly $10 million to remove 5 songs from the album and replace them with songs that he chose. And when she said no, you know what he told her? Now, this is allegedly, of course. Allegedly! He said she was a shitty songwriter who should be grateful for the gifts he bestowed upon her. And that she should just shut up and sing. Shut up and sing. In 2007 to Kelly Clarkson, when Kelly stood her ground, Sony did what they did best. They basically sabotaged her album. Limited promotion, no support, and then they leaked stories to the press trying to make it seem like she was difficult to work with. And everybody blamed Kelly for being difficult instead of blaming Sony for trying to control her art. And then some people say Clive Davis treated Whitney Houston the same way. Maybe that's a story for a different video. Now, all the stories I've told you so far, those were about recording contracts. But Sony's control goes deeper than what you record. They want to own what you write to. And this is what Shakira's Sony battle was about.
It was very difficult. I was very young. And being a woman also in this business is not easy. Thank God I had an amazing family surrounding me, supporting my dreams, encouraging me, my mother, my dad. You know, when I was 13, I released my first album with Sony Music, which back then was CBS.
See, when an artist writes a song, there's 2 copyrights. The recording, that's what you hear, also known as the master, and the composition, the words and the melody. Publishing companies control that second part, and Sony ATV, they're one of the biggest. Now, oddly enough, it doesn't seem like Shakira wants control, even though she's written some of the biggest international hits in history. We're talking Hips Don't Lie, Whenever, Wherever, massive hits that she wrote. And even though Shakira sold her music to a whole other company, Sony still made sure it was part of the deal. Even Michael Jackson knew this, and his understanding of publishing is the main reason he bought the Beatles catalog in the first place. He understood that owning publishing was the real power. The problem with Sony is they have a history of abusing that power. They want to own the artist's voice and thoughts and not give the artist a fair shake. Shakira's not necessarily a victim, but for someone who writes all their own music, she's definitely getting taken advantage of. Now, Sony's not the only company to do this, but they seem to be the most outspoken about. It's a pattern. Young artist signs to Sony. Sony makes them a star. Artist wants creative control or tries to leave. Sony destroys them.
Again, a life insurance policy on it.
Allegedly, that's ignorant.
And it's not just the artists in this video. Like back in 2018, a whole group of artists filed a class action lawsuit against Sony. Rick Nelson's estate sued because Sony was stealing streaming royalties by taking 68% over time. Even recently, I came across this video by an independent artist named Chandler Juliet. She goes into detail about why she walked away from a deal with Sony. They promised her $10,000 for a sync deal. Basically, that's where they buy your songs and they place them with artists or TV shows or movies. But after months of beating around the bush and holding her back from releasing the music, they tried to lowball her and say, oh, we can only pay $2,500 for everything.
$10,000 is fucking weak as fuck anyway.
If it does anything.
I'm not selling my soul, and I'm sure as not selling my soul for $2,500.
Even though her story is on a smaller scale than a major label artist, it's the same principle. They wanted to own her voice and own her thoughts for pennies on the dollar, basically. These aren't just business disputes. These are people's lives.
Yeah, they trying to show.
Michael Jackson died fighting Sony.
Yep.
Kesha lost 5 years of her career. Mariah was held prisoner and George Michael's career ended. Kelly was told to shut up and sing. And Sony, I mean, at this point, they're really too big to fail because they're a huge corporation that owns multiple entities in multiple different industries. Still signing artists, still making billions, and still putting out statements saying they support the artists whenever a new scandal breaks. I guess the bright side is now artists are finally starting to speak up. You got major artists re-recording their music. You got singer-songwriters talking about how labels are trying to change their creative direction. And I like to think I'm doing my part as a music producer and commentator, just kind of talking about the issues and bringing to light what's going on and some of the dark sides of the industry. Now, signing a bad record deal not only affects an artist's creative control, it can also affect the money. Watch this video on the screen next to see how some artists end up fumbling the bag.
Shout out to MJ Forever. How Michael Jackson outsmarted the music industry and won. Yeah, dig. Gotta get some W's in that bitch.
The music industry is a brutal game. Most artists rise and fall, trapped in unfair contracts and industry politics. But not Michael Jackson. He didn't just dominate the charts. He outsmarted the entire system. Labels couldn't control him. Executives couldn't manipulate him. Even when the industry turned against him, he played the game his way and won.
Ain't nobody safe when it
How
comes
did
down
Michael
to
Jackson
money. I
make
don't care
himself
what color you
untouchable
are,
while other
what
artists
religion you
struggled to
are.
keep their earnings
Nigga,
and
they
careers
don't
intact,
collect
owning his music to
it
making the
all,
most
bitch,
legendary business
if they
moves in
can.
history? This is the story of how
Sure.
MJ flipped the script, outmaneuvered the industry, and left behind a billion-dollar legacy they never saw coming. And the craziest part? The industry didn't realize what he was doing until it was too late. The first power move, owning his masters. Most artists don't own their music. It's a secret the industry doesn't want you to know. Record labels control everything. They give artists fame, but in return they take the real money, the rights to their songs. This means every time a song is sold, streamed, or played, the label gets paid first, while the artist gets only a small cut. But Michael Jackson was different. He saw through the system and refused to be just another artist on a label's payroll. In the 1980s, after the success of Off the Wall, Michael renegotiated his contract with Epic Records, ensuring that he had greater creative and financial control over his music. Then came Thriller, the album that made him unstoppable. It sold so many copies, broke so many records that Michael had all the leverage. He wasn't just a superstar, he was a one-man industry. When most artists would be satisfied with fame, Michael made a move that changed everything. He fought for ownership of his masters. That meant every time his songs were played, he got paid, not just the label. It was unheard of at the time, and only the most powerful artists could even dare to ask for it. This was only the beginning. Soon, Michael wouldn't just own his music, he'd own other people's music too. And that's when things got serious. The Beatles catalog. Owning his own music was just the beginning. Michael Jackson was always thinking bigger. And in 1985, he made a move that shocked the entire music industry. It all started with a simple conversation. While working together on Say, Say, Say and The Girl Is Mine, Paul McCartney gave Michael a piece of advice. Music publishing is where the real money is. Paul had been quietly buying song catalogs, collecting royalties from music he didn't even write. Michael listened carefully. And then, he made one of the smartest business moves in music history. That same year, the ATV music catalog went up for sale. A gold mine of 4,000 songs, including nearly 250 Beatles classics like Yesterday, Let It Be, Help, The Long and Winding Road, and Michelle. But it wasn't just the Beatles. The catalog also included songs from Elvis Presley, Bruce Springsteen, Rolling Stones, Cher, Little Richard. It even came with a massive library of sound effects, something most people don't even know. Paul McCartney and other investors wanted the catalog, but Michael, he outbid them all. For $47.5 million, MJ became the owner of one of the most valuable music catalogs in history. Paul McCartney was furious. Their friendship never recovered. But Michael wasn't trying to betray Paul. He was simply playing the game smarter. He understood something that most artists never realized. Own the music, and you own the industry. Every time a Beatles song played on the radio, got covered, or was used in a movie,
it's gonna be a target on your back. That's a fact.
The same went for songs by other legendary artists.
They already hated him
turned the industry's own system against them, securing a lifetime source of income that no record label could take from him. But the story didn't end there. The biggest label in the world, Sony, soon realized they had made a massive mistake and they weren't happy. Labels couldn't control him and they hated that. Record labels thrive on control. They sign artists, lock them into restrictive contracts, and take a massive cut of their earnings. Most musicians stay trapped in this system, unable to fight back. But Michael Jackson, he was different. By the late 1980s, MJ wasn't just the biggest artist in the world. He was also one of the richest. While other stars were dependent on their labels for money, Michael's ownership of the ATV catalog gave him an endless revenue stream. Every time a Beatles song played, a Rolling Stones track was covered, or an Elvis hit was licensed, Michael got a check. This made him a problem for the music industry.
Because they want him
Labels
broke.
prefer artists who need them.
Yeah, they want him broke so they can use the nigga.
And then
once he
came
started
Sony's
getting money,
biggest
they're like, oh
mistake.
shit.
By the early 1990s, Sony was desperate to get its hands on Michael's catalog.
That's how people are in
It was
general.
too valuable, and they couldn't afford to let it stay in the hands of an artist they couldn't control. So they made a deal, one they thought would put them in charge. Sony offered Michael a partnership. They would merge their own publishing catalog with MJ's ATV Music, creating Sony ATV, one of the biggest music publishing companies in the world. The deal gave Sony 50% ownership of the catalog, but Michael still kept full control. At first, Sony thought they had won. They assumed Michael would eventually sell off his share, giving them full ownership. But instead, MJ used the partnership to grow his empire even further. As Sony ATV expanded, so did Michael's power in the industry. With his growing fortune, MJ continued buying up more assets, acquiring rights to even more music. He became an unstoppable force, one that record executives couldn't manipulate. And that's when the industry decided to fight back. The media turned against him. His radio play started dropping, and soon, things took a darker turn. Because when they couldn't control him financially, they tried to destroy him personally. The Tommy Mottola feud. By the early 2000s, Michael Jackson wasn't just a superstar, he was a threat to the music industry. He had more power than most record labels, thanks to his half-ownership of Sony ATV, which controlled thousands of hit songs. But Sony wasn't happy. They wanted full control, and when they realized Michael wasn't going to give it up, things got ugly. At the center of this battle was Tommy Mottola, the powerful CEO of Sony Music. Mottola was known for being ruthless, but even he couldn't control Michael. Their relationship soured when MJ suspected that Sony was deliberately sabotaging his 2001 album, Invincible. The album had no major tour, no big promotions, and Sony refused to finance MJ's planned short films, something they had always done in the past. Michael believed it was all part of a bigger plan. Sony wanted him in debt, forcing him to sell them his share of the Sony ATV catalog. And Michael, he fought back, publicly. At a press conference in 2002, MJ did something no artist had ever dared to do. He called out one of the most powerful music executives in the world.
BTA.
Standing in front of cameras, Michael called Tommy Mottola a racist and accused Sony of being corrupt. He claimed the industry was designed to keep black artists from owning their work, and that labels used unfair contracts to control musicians.
A lot of these pussy ass niggas ain't finna do shit, nigga.
Against the industry like
All
this,
these white people,
especially not someone as famous as Michael Jackson. But behind the scenes, the industry was already working against him.
More people coming
His
up in the
music
game
stopped
get
getting
caught
radio
in these
play.
traps, nigga.
The media attacks became worse, and soon Michael was facing something even more dangerous: the revival of old allegations that would try to destroy him for good.
To destroy these
The message
artists
was
or
clear.
just people in general.
Michael Jackson was getting too powerful, and the industry wasn't going to let it happen. But what they didn't realize,
and shit.
even in his darkest
We
moments,
need to be working
MJ
together.
was still playing
Everybody trying to see how we
the
get the
music
best for
industry's
themselves,
revenge
nigga.
attempt,
You
false
come up, nigga, they still
allegations,
gonna try
and
to take
media
you out.
smears. The music industry
You
couldn't
help the
control
people learn
Michael
the truth,
Jackson
nigga.
financially, so they turned
Everybody
to
can
their
win.
most
Cause we
powerful
know
weapon,
what's up.
the media.
We create
It
our
wasn't
own
a
shit.
coincidence that every time
It
MJ
might
made a
take
major
time,
business
might not get
move,
the big contracts,
controversy
but shit,
followed.
at least we know
In
the truth.
1993,
Truth
just
more
as he
valuable
was
than
cementing
gold,
himself
priceless.
as a business mogul, the first allegations surfaced. The media went
Wisdom
into
is like
a frenzy,
treasure, nigga. You
pushing
gotta
a
go find
narrative
it.
that damaged his reputation. But Michael was never charged, never convicted, and even the
We know the
FBI
truth,
found no
nigga.
evidence against him. Then,
Shit,
in the
priceless.
early 2000s, as Sony was trying to force him to sell his share of Sony ATV, another wave of accusations hit. The 2005 trial was not just about the allegations, it was about power. It was about taking down a man who had become too powerful for the industry to control. The media ran sensationalized stories, ignoring evidence in Michael's favor. His finances were attacked, pushing the false narrative that he was going broke. Radio stations started blacklisting his music. Even some former allies in the industry turned against him. But despite everything, Michael Jackson still won. In 2005, he was acquitted of all charges. The world had been led to believe he was finished.
Big
But
fucking
behind the
W,
scenes,
nigga.
MJ was still making moves.
Play with
After
that
the
nigga
trial,
nice.
he left the
Play
U.S.
with
and
us
spent
niggas
time
in general,
overseas,
nigga. True.
quietly planning his next step. The industry thought they had buried him, but
Try
Michael
to
was
end
about to
that
prove them
nigga,
all
bruh.
wrong. Because in 2009,
They
he
hate
was
that
set for
nigga,
the
bruh.
ultimate comeback,
Cause he wasn't no
one that
stepping
could have
stool,
made
nigga.
him
That
more
nigga was a
powerful than
boss,
ever.
nigga.
And that's when things took the most tragic turn of all. The final victory. Michael still wins in the end. The music industry tried everything to stop Michael Jackson. They sabotaged his
Niggas put out all
albums,
types of
turned the
dummy
media
bags just to
against
get
him,
them
and
motherfuckers
pushed
put
him into
out.
financial struggles. But no matter what they did,
Every
they
hit
couldn't
booby
take away his
trap,
biggest
nigga.
asset, his music
The
empire.
hell?
Even as he prepared for his
What's
This
the
Is
point
It
of this is
comeback
the
tour
process,
in
man?
2009, Michael still owned half of Sony ATV, a catalog worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's why, even after his passing, MJ still won. His
Damn.
estate turned his financial struggles around, bringing in
And they got the
billions
movie.
after his
They
death.
got the movie
Sony
coming out
eventually
3.
bought out
Oh
his
yeah.
50% share of Sony ATV in 2016
Turn up, Mike.
for $750 million, making it one of the most profitable investments any artist has ever made. Michael's music continues to break records, and his influence hasn't faded. The music industry may have tried to erase him, but they couldn't. His legacy, his business moves, and his impact are untouchable. Michael Jackson didn't just change music, he outsmarted an entire industry. And today he remains one of the richest and most powerful artists of all time, even in death. So the question isn't whether Michael Jackson
Niggas used to getting used like
it's whether
Tommy.
the
You come in
industry
like a king
ever truly recovered
or a
from losing
queen,
him.
bitch. They don't know what to
The
do.
industry tried to control Michael Jackson, but he was always 10 steps ahead. He built an empire, played the game better than the labels, and left behind a legacy that's still generating billions. And now, the question is, do you think MJ was the smartest businessman in music history? Let us know in the comments.
And this is why we need to fight forever, man. Because everything is sweet. And they got all these little minions around trying to sabotage us and shit. But real ones recognize real. We're going to get up out this. You know what I'm saying? In general, shout out to Michael Jackson forever. MJ forever, man. Let's get it, man.
What if Michael Jackson wasn't just entertaining us, but trying to warn us? What if those catchy lyrics and hypnotic beats were actually messages hidden in plain sight? Some fans believe that MJ wasn't just the king of pop. He was a man screaming from the inside.
Michael was totally misunderstood.
Niggas getting taken out over $5.
Trapped in a system of power, control, and secrets.
You know what I'm
From
saying?
songs like They Don't Care About Us to Money and Morphine, Michael seemed to go from pop icon to protest leader, almost like he knew something we didn't, something they didn't want him to say.
He was disappointed, even though it was one of the greatest performances anybody had ever seen.
Was he exposing the puppet masters pulling the strings? Or was it all just misunderstood pain? In this video, we're diving deep into the lyrics they told you not to overthink. Because once you hear what MJ really said, you might never listen to his music the same way again. They don't care about us. A protest or a signal. They don't care about us. Michael didn't whisper that. He screamed it over and over again.
They don't really care about us. Facts, nigga.
And if you really listen to the lyrics, he wasn't just talking about racism or police brutality. He was calling out the system itself. Yep. He starts the song with a barrage of chaos. Skinhead, deadhead, everybody gone bad. It's not sugar-coated. It's anger, rage, a direct middle finger to the powers that be. And then he drops the most controversial line of his entire career. Jew me, sue me, everybody do me. Kick me, kike me, don't you black or white me.
Sue me, everybody do me. Kick me, don't you black or white me.
Yeah, he said it. Unfiltered, uncensored. That line got him banned on radio stations. Media called him anti-Semitic. But Michael wasn't attacking Jewish people. He was exposing how society labels, targets, and tears people apart, no matter their background. This wasn't a pop song.
At that time,
it was a damn war cry. And he made 2 music videos for it. One in a Brazilian favela filled with military police, and another inside a literal prison. He was pointing at the government, at corporate elites, at the industry that built him, and then tried to bury him. Fans say this was Michael's way of screaming, "Wake up." He wasn't hiding the message. He was daring people to hear it.
Dang, Michael's on this.
But most didn't, or didn't want to. And the more defiant he got, the more dangerous things became. Money, a direct attack on the puppet masters? If they don't care about us was Michael throwing punches at the system, money was him kicking down the damn door. This song isn't subtle. It's an all-out assault on the industry's obsession with greed and power. Listen to this line. Lie for it, spy for it, kill for it, die for it. That's not poetry. That's truth. That's a man exposing how far people will go when there's money involved. MJ knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't just talking about fame. He was talking about how the elite use people, especially black artists like puppets. They build you up, make millions off your back, then throw you to the wolves when you stop obeying. He'd seen it. He lived it. And he was calling it out with fire in his voice. Anything, anything, anything for money.
That's a fact.
Michael didn't just mean sellouts. He meant the people in suits, the silent ones in boardrooms, the ones who pull strings behind the scenes and make stars disappear when they get too powerful. Was he talking about Sony? The industry execs he openly beefed with?
They never thought this performer myself would outthink them.
Was he calling out the so-called handlers who kept artists under control? Fans say money wasn't just a song. It was a damn warning. A way to say, I see you, I know what you're doing, and I won't stay quiet. But by this point, MJ wasn't just exposing them. He was becoming a target. And next, things got dark. Real dark. Morphine. Was he screaming for help? If you've never listened to Morphine, really listened, you're missing the most disturbing song Michael Jackson ever recorded. Forget smooth beats and catchy hooks. This one's different. It's dark, twisted, and straight up terrifying. MJ screams, "He's taking Demerol! Oh God, he's taking Demerol!" over and over again. Like he's not singing, he's begging.
Demerol, Demerol, oh God, he's taking Demerol.
Like he's stuck in a nightmare he can't escape. On the surface, it's about drug use, but fans believe it goes way deeper. They say this song was a cry for help, a coded message about being drugged, controlled, or even poisoned by the people around him. The truth? MJ didn't trust many people, and he sure as hell didn't trust the doctors or handlers who pumped his body full of meds.
In the recording studio and so on, so his reality is very, very different.
That's how they do it, nigga. They call these freak ass accidents.
He said
you not knowing the whole
Morphine
time.
sounds like
This shit
someone
part what they
trapped,
doing. The system.
tortured,
They trying to
slowly
take
losing
niggas
control.
out on purpose.
Some say it's
They blame
autobiographical. Others say it's a confession.
People need
But a
to wake the
growing
fuck
number
up.
of
This is
fans
what's going
believe
on
it was
out
a
there on these
warning
streets, nigga.
that he was being medicated
Car
on
crashes
purpose,
and shit.
kept in a fog so he'd
All
stay
these freak
obedient
ass
and quiet.
accidents or
And when you
can't
connect this to
explain
how
their
he
death
died,
because
under
they're taking
suspicious
niggas out.
circumstances, With enough drugs in his system to knock out an elephant, this song feels like a damn prophecy. Was MJ trying to tell us what they were doing to him? And if so, why didn't we listen? Because by the time we heard it, it was already too late. Was MJ obsessed with conspiracies? Or right all along? To the media, Michael Jackson was paranoid. To his fans, he was woke before woke existed. This man didn't just believe in conspiracies, he lived them. He once said in a taped phone call, "They want to kill me. They want to frame me. I'm not safe." People brushed it off as paranoia, mental breakdown, just another wacko jacko moment. But let's get real. This was the most famous man on the planet.
If Michael Jackson ever laid a finger on me, I would not be in this chair right now.
Someone with money, power, and millions of fans. And yet he was terrified, watching his back, begging people to believe him. He spoke out against Sony, claiming they were sabotaging his album.
The way they get revenge is to try and destroy my album.
He said the media was being used as a weapon to destroy him. He fired longtime handlers and stopped trusting almost everyone. Was he losing it or waking up? The industry he helped build started turning on him. False stories, legal battles, character assassinations. It was like a hit job, but in slow motion.
I own half of Sony's publishing, and I'm leaving them, and they're very angry at me.
One piece at a time, they dismantled it. Some say MJ became obsessed with conspiracies, but maybe it wasn't an obsession. Maybe it was survival. Was MJ trying to warn the world? So, was Michael Jackson really talking about the Illuminati? Was he calling out the elite, exposing the industry, or was he just an artist venting pain through music?
They really thought that my mind is always on music and dancing, and it usually is.
That's the question no one can answer for sure. But one thing's clear, he knew things. He said things. And the more he spoke out, the more they tried to shut him up. From screaming, "They don't care about us," in the streets of Brazil, to exposing the greed and filth of the industry and money, to Morphine, a song that sounds like a man trapped in his own personal hell. This wasn't random. This wasn't entertainment. This was a man using music to say what he couldn't say out loud. And maybe that's why they turned him into a punchline. Maybe that's why they smeared him, broke him, and left him medicated until the day he died.
The king of pop, Michael Jackson.
He was just 50 years old, and in the city where he died, Los Angeles.
Some call it conspiracy. Others call it truth. But if you really listen to those lyrics, you start to wonder, was Michael Jackson just ahead of his time? Or was he trying to scream a message that none of us were ready to hear? Now it's your turn. Was MJ a paranoid genius, a victim of the machine, or a man who saw too much and paid the price? Drop your take in the comments, but be ready. This debate, it's just getting started.
Alright, we back. So you see from here, bro, that a lot of this stuff, man, you know what I'm saying? You might get to where you need to get to in life, man, but motherfuckers, man, to keep their power over a certain situation, the people in top, I'm talking about top, like, who got all the money out in the world, got all the, you feel me? They would do anything. You know what I'm saying? They would use people. They would try to keep you captive. They would, man, we live in a crazy world. But shout out to all the people who help out the real people and help spread the truth. Because if it wasn't for people like us, or people who put it on, we wouldn't know. It'd be more people getting fucked over and more sad stories. We have this bitch hooding outside, big crip in the game, that's that shit, man.
Hey, Dad, you know, dog, when we link up, dog, this shit be legendary. You know this instrumental, you the engineer on it, so Kodak everywhere.